In Roman mythology, also possibly what inspired Bram Stoker, who is the original author of the first Dracula book ever, this is what possibly inspired him. In Roman mythology meant that they were restless souls that came from this grave, that dug themselves out. They went after they got vitality from the blood of their victims. They would suck the blood out of their victims, and they could possibly transform into beasts. They could become invisible. This is what possibly inspired the creation of the original Dracula. When you think about vampires, the first fictional vampire that could come to your mind would possibly be Dracula, but to say the truth, unfortunately he does not exist. But there were historical figures that could also be what inspired Dracula itself. Was Vlad the Impaler. So, Vlad the Impaler himself was a historical figure. He was quite like a prince. He was a prince-like leader for the military of Wallachia, which later on joined with Moldavia to form Romania and fought against the Ottoman Empire. Dracula was not the first fictional vampire. The first fictional vampire book was actually published in 1819. Meanwhile, Dracula itself, by Bram Stoker, was published in 1897. The first actual vampire book was by an author named John William Polydor, who published the book in 1819 and named it The Vampire. Dracula truly is not the original vampire to exist, but he may be an inspiration to modern-day vampires, such as Alucard and so on. Let's talk about the interesting and actual vampires in human history. The first vampire that we know of so far was known as Jure Grando, also known as Jure Grando. I hope I pronounced that right. He was born in 1579 and passed away in 1656. Jure Grando, he was actually a stonesman, so the first human vampire was actually a stonesman. He was born in Istria, modern-day Croatia, and his wife, Ivana. The two of them birthed two beautiful children known as Anna and Nikola. There are no actual recorded pictures of him, but he is said to have become a vampire after his death in 1656. Let's talk about other vampires. How about Peter Blackojević? Peter Blackojević was actually a Serbian peasant who was born in 1662 and passed away in 1725. He is also said to have become a vampire after his death. There are many legends about him. He was said to not have died entirely, since, after his death, so many disappearances occurred. Within 8 days, 9 people had disappeared, and most of the victims that survived claimed that they were actually victims of Peter Blackojević. Obviously, they asked for the Austrian authorities to be involved, but that would take a lot of time, and the citizens, they complained, threatened the priest and main police. If you do not act now, then we will be evacuating this village entirely for our safety. The council, I believe, they were obliged to accept. Looked at the grave, they noticed a smiling corpse. His corpse was said to be smiling in some legends, in some others' legends, he was said to not have been. They stabbed through his heart. In some legends, the knife bounced off, which is quite terrifying, but in another legend it says that once they stabbed through his heart, fresh blood began pouring out, almost as if he had not even been dead. As the priest looked closer to the man, he noticed he had not even decomposed. He was growing hair, nails, new skin was developing. Perhaps he was a vampire after all. Out of fear, in some legends, they sawed his head off. So, Peter Blackojević was known both as a warlock and as a strigon. He was known as a strigon. His wife, Anna, seemed to leave the village for safety reasons, and claimed he had come to her at night, even though when he was dead, He asked for his shoes. Perhaps that's why she left, because she knew the truth and no one would believe her. In some legends, it is also claimed that his son was in the house when he had arrived, and apparently they had fought, and well, the son had signs of being a victim of a vampire. Perhaps he did exist. Perhaps all of this may be a legend, but it is a historical figure whatsoever. Arnold Paole, he has the same history as Peter Blackojević. He had passed away in 1726, a year after Peter Blackojević. This case was very famous amongst the military doctors who had examined the case. They said that he had signs of being a vampire himself, and that it was possible that he was a vampire. The Austrian authorities had become involved. Now imagine the case being so powerful that the Austrian authorities must be involved, and words spread quickly. Fear began to rise. Two cases alike, Arnold Paole and Peter Blackojević. And one of another historical figure that could have possibly inspired the legend of Dracula himself was the Bloody Countess, also known as Elizabeth Brathory. She was said to have been born in 1560 and passed away in 1614. She had begun her rampage in 1590 to 1610. Her husband also passed away in 1604. She was Hungarian, which was quite close to Serbia. Could this all be a connection? Perhaps it is, perhaps it isn't. She was mainly accused of witchcrafts, as almost every woman in history had been, but her case is different. She was accused of witchcraft, but so were her servants. Strange, isn't it? But her servants were rather petrifying as well. Her servants and her seem to have killed hundreds of girls and women. As I said, the rampage of 1590 to 1610. She is known as the Bloody Countess, and there were evidences against her, physical evidences of corpses. She was taken to court with hundreds of people against her in the house of Brathory. She was a countess. Perhaps that also inspired Dracula, since Dracula was a count himself. Her servants were executed while she was imprisoned until she died in her sleep. But did these vampires ever truly pass away? Were they ever truly vampires? Let's talk about Mercy Brown, and this candle seems to be quite dying. Mercy Brown, you're probably familiar with that name if you're an American or whatsoever, if you like history of vampires. Mercy Brown was believed to be a vampire. She was 19 when she passed away due to tuberculosis, a lung disease that she had not treated. So, that's Mercy Brown, and she was said to have killed her entire family. This case was in Washington, in USA, in Exeter. I think that's the name. Farewell for now. Are you also a vampire?